Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across this beautiful blue green globe of ours. Welcome to a Seahawk Boys special edition, day 2, 2025 Seahawks mock draft. I'm your host, Seahawk Boy Mike Barrett. In fact, I should change my name. It just says Mike Barrett. Let's do a name change on that sucker there. Edit name. Yeah. Okay. Seahawk Boy, Mike Barra. There we go. Great to have you guys back with us. And it was a very exciting day yesterday in the NFL draft, at least for me. A lot of things happened. Shadur Sanders slipped, as a lot of people thought he might, and it was some few surprises, a few curious picks, a couple of trades. We're going to come back and go over day one real quickly, and then we are going to get into a day two Seahawks oriented mock draft. We have 4 picks in day two. Let's see what happens. All right, great to be back with you guys. Welcome back. I'm Seahawk Boy Mike. This is a special edition, draft day edition, day two of the Seattle Seahawks mock draft. We had a really interesting day yesterday. At least I found it interesting. I thought it was a good round of drafting, and I think that the really key element here is just that it was a fascinating first round. That people said, there's not a lot of stars. There's starters, not stars in this draft. Let's go back what each and everybody did, and then talk a little bit about the Seahawks, and then we'll get into round two. I'm using the Pro Football Network mock draft simulator. It's my favorite. Sportskeeda has a little bit different player rankings. Be interesting to compare in terms of guys that went that were where Sportskeeda had them ranked as opposed to where NFL Pro Football Network had them ranked. But the draft started out with Cameron Ward, the quarterback from Miami, going to the Tennessee Titans, former WSU Cougar. I understand why he had to be the number one pick. They had issues. They at quarterback. Will Levis has not really done the job. He's only had 20 starts. It's ludicrous to give up on a quarterback after 20 starts. But it's not like they spent the first overall pick in the draft on Will Levis. So they can afford, after just 2 seasons with terrible coaching and terrible players around him, they're saying, well, we're just going to kind of give up on him. We're going to move on to something else. We're going to get Cam Ward. Good morning, Jane and Mary. I also want to say very special thank you to Christine Packer for the contributions to helping me with my vet bills with Miss Fluffy Muffy. That was very sweet, Christine. Appreciate it. And also condolences to Michael Jaco, my friend. Apparently, he lost his son in the last few days, and that must be a terrible, terrible thing to go through. So sorry to hear about that, Michael. We'll probably have more to talk about on that on Monday. But they took Cam Ward. Look, I think Cam Ward is a third round pick. I thought he was a third round pick last year if he'd come out with all the other quarterbacks ahead of him. I don't see him as being any better now. And I always viewed him as Tyrod Taylor. I think he can be a good, serviceable NFL starter, but that's about as far as I'll take it. I don't really think Cam Ward's that good a football player, but the Titans are starting over at quarterback. That means Will Levis is available in a trade. And if I was the Seattle Seahawks and I could get him for a day 3 pick, like my 4th round pick, I would do it, or a 4th round pick and something else. I would do it because he's a similar player in terms of physical attributes to Sam Darnold, and he could have a couple of years to learn behind one of the best from last year, Sam Darnold. And Darnold's also had a similar journey to his. So that's something I think I'd be really interested in. Now, Travis Hunter, the Jaguars traded up with the Browns to get Travis Hunter, the running back from Colorado, cornerback, wide receiver, running back, kick returner, jack of all trades, probably the best player in the draft, one of my favorite players. You got to give kudos to the Jags for that. The Giants stood pat. They did not take Shedeur Sanders. They took Abdul Carter, the edge from Penn State, probably the best pass rusher in the draft. Will Campbell, the offensive tackle, went as predicted to the New England Patriots, a good solid left tackle to protect Drake May, their investment from last year. Then the Browns did the first thing I thought was a little weird. I'm sorry to tell you this, Brian Engelman, but I thought this was a retarded pick. They took Mason Graham. There were questions about Mason Graham, even though he is ranked as the best defensive tackle in this draft. There were serious questions about him in terms of the fact that he didn't work out at the combine, didn't do any private workouts, didn't do his pro day. The only thing he did at the combine was the bench press, and he finished second to the last. There are a lot of indications that his refusal to test was to hide the fact that his testing wasn't very good and he's not very athletic. And in spite of how he played in college, it probably may not, won't transfer to the pros. Now, we could be completely wrong about that, but it's not like high Fire from Washington State. Yeah, I mean, Cam Ward showed me at Washington State. He's a third round pick. He's a guy I would have taken a chance on. And if he'd been a Tyrod Taylor level backup, I would have been happy with that development if I was the Seahawks. But now he goes number one overall after sticking a ton of money in his pocket to do the NIL transfer to Miami. So I think a lot of that just shows the difference between press coverage of East Coast players versus West Coast players. I mean, between Miami, of Florida, and Washington State, you can't get any further apart geographically. And I just think it's an indication of the bias that the East Coast thinking in the networks and the NFL and all that stuff really plays into things. So Campbell was a good pick. Graham, I'm not so sure that was a good pick, but we'll see. Hopefully, he's a good player for the Browns. It's funny because the top five picks, six or seven picks, have been on a consensus: Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Will Campbell, Mason Graham, and Ashton Genty. Those are the top six consensus picks for the last couple months, really. And that's the way they went. That's exactly the way they went. Ashton Genty goes to the Raiders. Pete Carroll picks up a running back. People were talking about, oh, you got his Marshawn Lynch. I'm not sure Genty is a Marshawn Lynch, but he's a good player. And he should have an impact for the Raiders. Any news about Gunnar Helm? No. I'm going to his draft party Saturday night here in Denver. He went to my alma mater, the University of Texas. I do expect him to be drafted today. I do think he will go and date in the second round, but we'll see. I mean, I will talk about that. I haven't really had a chance to catch up on any rumors yet so far today. Then the first interesting pick of the draft, Armand Membu went to the Jets at number 7. They were widely rumored to be taking maybe one of the quarterbacks. Maybe they would take Shedeur Sanders, everybody thought, but no, they went with a guy who's a lot of people think is the best tackle in this draft, Armand Membo. They think he's going to be the best guy. So he's probably going to start at right tackle, but he also could be a left tackle. They may just throw him into the fire. And he will be protection for Justin Fields in New York. Then a pick I didn't like very much, Tetroya McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, went to the Panthers. I recognize that they have to get some weapons for Bryce Young to help his development. He made some strides in year 2 after it being really outplayed by CJ Stroud, who went after him in the draft in year 1. It was almost embarrassing. I'm not sure. McMillan has great receiving skills and a great highlight reel. His character is a concern, his football character. How hard he will work is a concern. And so that's a little bit surprising. Um, from my perspective that he went that high, because if you want an impact offensive player, it seems like a guy like Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren would have been a better pick at tight end than McMillan, because you don't have the other concerns. But oh well. University of Texas once again comes on the board with Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle, going to the Saints. This is another place Shedeur Sanders was thought to have gone. He did not go there. Then Colston Loveland, the pass catching tight end out of Michigan, goes to the Chicago Bears. He's more of a split wide tight end, I guess. He's not really the inline guy. Tyler Warren is more of the inline Gronkowski type. This guy is more of a slot kind of Travis Kelsey kind of tight end. But either way, he is another good weapon, and that will allow the Bears and their new coach Dan Campbell to use a lot of two wide receiver sets, a lot of 22 personnel. Sorry, two tight end sets. 22 personnel and you can move him out in the slot. It'll be interesting for the Bears. Good pick. Mikael Williams, edge from Georgia for the 49ers. This is an indication 49ers are in rebuilding mode. Once again, they got a top 10 or 15 pick to do it with. Hopefully, he's not as good as some of the other top 15 picks that the 49ers have made. But this is not a pick that worries me as an opponent of the 49ers. This shows they have a long way to go. Then a surprisingly good pick. Tyler Booker, the offensive guard from Alabama, goes to the Dallas Cowboys. I think Jerry here is trying to repeat his success with who's the center that he took in 2015? Johnny Manziel year. Oh, I forget his name, but he had a great career. Again, he's trying to be smart, take the offensive lineman. Tyler Brooker, though, is a real good football player. If he'd have fallen to the Seahawks at 18, I would have been happy if they'd taken him. Absolutely. Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan. Again, kind of a strange pick. Not really something that a lot of people saw coming. They needed offensive and defensive line help, but I thought given the way the draft had fallen, I think Grant is a bottom third of the first round pick, not 13th, but they did what they had to do. They took a player that they wanted. Tyler Warren, then the Gronkowski type inline tight end. Tyler Warren goes to the Colts. They haven't had a tight end in years, probably since Pollard played there. Good for them. Good player. I think he's really got a lot of upside. Jalen Walker, the linebacker from Georgia, sort of a pass rushing fiend. That's what the Falcons need. Great fit, great pick. Terrible pick here. Cardinals, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. I think both Nolan and Grant are guys that should have gone in the 25 to 32 range. They end up getting reaches here. They're reached earlier. Nolan is okay, but I mean, again, you want to know something interesting? The guy we're going to talk about in a minute for the Seattle Seahawks absolutely manhandled him at the Senior Bowl. So he's got a ways to go. He's kind of a Byron Murphy type. He has an order of magnitude of improvement to go through before he's going to be an impact player. Shamar Stewart, the edge from Texas A&M, goes to the Bengals. Logical pick. This is a guy who's more athlete than football player in all likelihood. It remains to be seen if he'll have more production at the pro level than he did at the college level. It usually doesn't happen that way, but they need edge guys because Fredrickson is complaining about his contract once out, their best pass rusher. They needed defensive line help. They had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So I think that they took the guy that they thought was the best. Now the next three picks are really good ones. Gray Zabel, the Seattle Seahawks, absolutely terrific pick. 6'5", 312. Lots of great testing. Works well in his own blocking scheme, which is what the Seahawks are going to. Plug and play left tackle, left guard. Same thing with Tyler Booker for the Cowboys. Plug and play left guard. Great mentality, great work ethic. Can play actually all five positions on the line of scrimmage. So good for them. The Seahawks took Gray Zabel. I was kind of teasing and taunting about Shadur Sanders here. Seahawks could really mess the draft up. But for once, they did the smart thing. They didn't listen to me. I was fine with Gray Zabel. He was targeted to the Seahawks for a long time. They had one need. They had one true need coming into this draft. It was left guard. They filled that need with what they think is the best left guard, the best guard in this draft, the best interior offensive lineman in this draft. I don't disagree, and I think the only competitor for that is Tyler Booker. The other tackles possibly could play guard, but they were drafted as tackles. So, I mean, I just think it was a great fit, great pick. Seahawks got an A. And I have to say, this entire offseason is an A for the Seattle Seahawks. They finally moved on from Geno Smith, which they should have. He was trouble. He was a pain in the ass. DK Metcalf was disgruntled. They moved on from him. They got a second and third round pick out of those two guys. And then they signed Sam Darnold, the number one free agent out there, the number one free agent quarterback out there, a guy who had 37 touchdowns last season and only 11 interceptions. Terrific year. And now they can protect him because it showed that they showed last year in the Vikings in the playoffs. You got to protect Sam Darnold if you want him to be effective. Seahawks took a big step towards doing that. Then Emeka Egbuka-Njigba goes to from Ohio State, goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of people had them taking a safety here, maybe Emin Wari, maybe one of those guys. They made the right call. This is an outstanding citizen, an outstanding football player, comes from a top level pedigree. Absolutely. Hi, Jeff. Hi, everybody. Hi, Mary. Top level pedigree guy, top level program. It's going to be super productive, and like his twin brother Jackson Smith Nigjigba, Emeka Abuka Nigjigba is going to be a really good player. I'm kidding. We were making jokes all night last night about Nigjigba. Then a pick I wasn't wild about. The Broncos could use some offensive help for Bo Nix. They took Jahdae Barron. A few people had Jahdae Barron as the best defensive back in this draft. A few people had him as a third round pick. It's a high risk, high reward pick for the Broncos, but it would appear to strengthen their defensive secondary, which is a strength. I mean, the draft, people don't understand, the draft is really never to me about plugging holes. The ideal situation for me is you don't ever come into a draft with a hole. You should have a serviceable NFL starter at every position. The Seahawks didn't. They did have a big need at left guard. They filled it. I don't think you fill a need. I think sometimes what you do is you build on a strength, and that's what the Broncos are doing here. They're saying, look, our offense is productive enough that we don't have to go out of our way to take an offensive player here, like a running back or a wide receiver or one of the tight ends. We can build on a strength. We can build our secondary. That is a good way to execute things. Then Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't have a quarterback, nor do they have another pick for quite a while. They took Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon. They must have really liked him. I don't think they like Shadur Sanders very much. They didn't take him, even though he was speculated to go there, along with Jalen Milroe, another player that they were reportedly really high on. We'll see if they try to make another trade to get back into the second round and get one of those two guys. The Chargers did a basic thing. They did a sort of basic pick, Omari and Hampton, rated right around 2022 running back. They took him, new weapon for Justin Herbert. That helps protect Justin Herbert. The Packers needed a wide receiver. They took Matthew Golden from Texas, one of the better receivers in this draft. You have to say good things about him. The Vikings surprised me here a little bit because they took Donovan Jackson, the third or fourth best guard in this draft because they needed a guard, so that's what they took. I don't quite understand the Vikings. They spent they got two guys they signed on the offensive line, starter, center, and guard in the free agency period. But they saw the breakdown that happened in the playoffs last year on their offensive line. They decided to really continue to shore that up. The only problem is you don't have a quarterback. J.J. McCarthy didn't even make it through a training camp before he blew his knee out. That's what you're going to go with. The Vikings have an open Super Bowl window. They have the weapons. They have a pretty decent defense. They only have 4 picks in this draft. They strengthened one of their biggest weaknesses, their offensive line, with 2 signees in free agency and Donovan Jackson and J.J. McCarthy's who you're going to trot out a quarterback trying to win a Super Bowl. I don't understand it. I can't imagine that they aren't going to sign Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson would have been the guy to take them for a run at a Super Bowl this year. They didn't do it. Then the Giants traded up with the Houston Texans. The Texans want more picks. They traded back, took Jackson Dart, the quarterback from Ole Miss. So Shadur got even more insulted because Jackson Dart went in front of him. A lot of people love Dart. A lot of people do. The Giants love him. Now they have a very crowded quarterback room. They have Jameis Winston. They have Russell Wilson. They have Jackson Dart. And they have Danny DeVito. DeVito's going to go. I don't think Jameis Winston's going to make the team really. Russell Wilson's going to start. Jackson Dart's going to take over at some point. If they give Russell Wilson the flexibility to call his own plays, check out to his own plays, let him innovate, Russell Wilson will throw a lot of touchdown passes there in New York and be very successful like he is everywhere when he has the freedom to operate the way he sees the field. He could keep Jackson Dart on the bench for a couple of years, although I don't think that's the plan as it stands right now. Next pick, again, pedestrian. Falcons needed traded in to get this guy, James Pierce, as an edge. It's fairly pedestrian, but it was a trade. James Pierce Jr., the edge from Tennessee. They needed a pass rusher. They took a pass rusher. So when you look at how the Falcons came out of it, they got Jalen Walker, who can also rush the passer, and James Pierce. They aggressively went after their biggest need, but I don't think Pierce is a guy that really excites me. Then the first safety, Malachi Starks, comes off the board, goes to Baltimore. He's a Ravens type player. A lot of people had him pegged for the Seahawks. I understand people's desire to improve the safety position at the Seahawks and in Seattle, but there's no need to. We're not desperate. We have Kobe Bryant and Jordan Love. They are not Jordan Love. Anyway, our other safety, we did fine back there. Not a big need. Tyleik Williams, a defensive tackle from Ohio State, goes to Detroit. I think Detroit's first 3 picks should be defense in this draft. They had a lot of injuries there last year. It cost them the Super Bowl. It was a shame. They did good. They got an inside defensive player. Josh Connerly, the offensive tackle from Oregon, goes to the Washington Redskins. Good pick, good solid player. Will help shore up the protection for the amazingly great Jaden Daniels. Maxwell Harrison, cornerback from Kentucky. Again, weird pick. A lot of defensive backs like Will Johnson were rated higher, but the Bills, this is who they liked. They've had a pretty good track record of drafting the last 5 years. Let's just see what he becomes. Jihad Campbell. I would never draft a guy named Jihad, but he's a linebacker, a bit of a pass rusher, good player. The Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs flip-flopped picks for like pick number 164, like a fifth. I don't know why the Eagles did that. They didn't want anybody, I guess, coming in front of them. There must have been some action on Kansas City's pick at 31, and the Eagles must have decided, well, we'll top that 6th-round offer with a 5th-round pick to get the guy we want, Jihad Campbell. Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. They may have to wait for him. He may not be healthy for training camp, but that is an excellent, excellent pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. Exactly what they needed. Broncos signed another University of Texas ex-player, Sam Ellinger, as a quarterback. So excited to have lots of Texas players in Denver. Shabby Maverick says, I'm from Minnesota. I don't understand the Vikings. I still think it's rigged. Said that since the 70s. Well, yeah, the Drew Pearson play haunts you as Vikings. I lived in Minnesota for 7 years, Minneapolis area, well, Bloomington actually. Bloomington, Minnesota, from Metropolitan Stadium in Bloomington, Minnesota. I grew up with that. And then it was the Mall of America when I got there. I agree with you. The Vikings have an open window for the Super Bowl. They have a good enough defense and a great offense. Why are you not just signing Aaron Rodgers, the guy who can pull the trigger on your offense through all those great receivers? Just do it. Stop being morons. Hi, Marco. How are you doing? All right. Now we're going to move on to round 2 and run the simulator for round 2. We're up first with the Cleveland Browns. Now, in the first round, the Browns took Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. I'm not wild about that pick. There are still a lot of good players on the board here, a lot of them. And, you list quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, edge. I think the Browns can get another good player. I think they should, and they may as well just solve their quarterback problem here. Bring in a young quarterback, Shadur Sanders. He's a pain in the ass. He's got Dion, is a problem. But the reality is, look, just take your quarterback and be done with it. And Sanders may not even be the best out of this group of second-round quarterbacks, but it's about where he should go. I mean, with character issues, it's about where he should go. And the Browns, character issues, what's new about that? Come on. Or we always have that with them. So I'm just going to have him going top of the second round to the Browns where he belongs. Now, once again, the Texans are on the clock. They haven't been on the clock yet. They've picked nobody in the first round, but they now have 2 second-round picks and 3 third-round picks, 5 roster spots. They need a tackle. They need a guard. They need a wide receiver. They need a center. They need a defensive tackle. They have a lot of choices. Unfortunately, all of the top players here are on the defensive side of the ball. So you've got a pick of guys like Will Johnson at corner, Mike Green at the edge, Amanda Wari is safety, Nick Scorton, Donovan Ezeraku, the Boston College edge, is a really good player, but the Texans aren't picking again for quite a while. So I think this is a situation where you can't really go with need. I think you have to go with the best player on the board. Let's go ahead and get them a guy. Jeez. I'm going to go with Ezaraku. I know a lot of people have other players rated higher. I'm going to go with Ezaraku. I'm going to take the edge and get a little pass rush there in Houston. It's not a crying need, but he's probably one of the best players left on the board. Tennessee Titans now, of course, they took Cam Ward. They also need a wide receiver, an edge, a corner, a linebacker, a safety. Let's just go with the best wide receiver left, at least the best on the board. Luther Burden out of Missouri goes to Tennessee. This is one of the mistakes they made with Levis. They didn't keep drafting offensive talent to surround him with, but they can do it there in Houston. Cleveland Browns now back again. What are they going to do? Well, they took Shedeur Sanders. Now, again, are they going to take a risky player? Are they going to take a surefire player? Because they've got two risky players so far in Mason Graham and Shedeur Sanders. As I said, there's a lot of doubts about whether Graham's really as good as his pedigree. Sanders is a solid player. They could take Will Johnson. They could also take an edge rusher to team with Myles Garrett, a young, up and coming heir apparent. That's where the strength of the draft is right now. I have them taking Mike Green, the edge from Marshall. Now we go back to the Raiders. Raiders took Ashton Jenney, the running back in the first round. Their needs are listed as corners, wide receiver, safety. What do the Raiders do in the draft? They gamble, they roll the dice, they take picks that are risky. Now, Will Johnson was the ninth rated overall player by many, many teams. He's sitting here in the second round because of concerns about his injuries, whether they're going to be long term. I think the Raiders take the chance. I think it's a good fit. They love to take wide receivers and corners, so we'll go with Will Johnson. Now, the Patriots in the first round picked up the offensive tackle from Texas or LSU, Will Campbell. They also have needs at wide receiver, at edge, and again, there's a lot of good edges here. I think they wanted Ezaraku from Boston College. I think they're going to settle for Nick Scorton from Texas A&M to fulfill that particular pass rushing need. Now we come back to the Bears. Now, the Bears have already done a great job. They got Colston Loveland, the tight end in Michigan, to help Caleb Williams grow. They also have needs at offensive tackle and running back and safety and edge. I have them filling the running back need right here. Trayvon Henderson's a really good player from Ohio State, big power back. Offense. I think the Bears, the rest of their picks are going to be defense, and they're picking again in with another pick. Now, we come to the New Orleans Saints. Now, it's interesting because they've got Derek Carr and Spencer Rattler, who I really like. They took Kelvin Banks in the first round. But if you're going to take a quarterback in this draft, given the issues, given the problems that the quarterbacks that Derek Carr has in New Orleans, it doesn't look like he's going to be back. Again, they picked a solid guy in the first round who's going to make a major contribution. They could use a wide receiver. There's Trey Harris from Ole Miss. Do they want to go offense, or do they want to go offense, defense? They need a corner. Who are they going to take? I would say if I was them, we're going to continue to build Spencer Rattler and Derek Carr at quarterback for now. We're going to take Trey Amos, the Ole Miss corner, at number 40. Now it pops back to the Bears. The Bears so far have taken Loveland and Trayvon Henderson. They still need an offensive tackle, would be their number one need. I don't see anybody who really fits here on the side of on the offensive tackle side. Ariante Ursary is a good player, but there are better defensive players out there. They fill the running back situation. They got a weapon. Nick Imanawari is a good player. I'm going to give them the safety as their number 3 need and pop him in there. Now the Jets. The Jets do not have a quarterback to speak of on the offense. Let's face reality. This is a good time to take one. I think here in this situation, Milroe is the highest rated, but he's a super, super project. Tyler Show is a good player out of Louisville. They've taken Louisville quarterbacks before. I suspect, I don't know, I'm going to take Milrow because he's the best quarterback left. San Francisco 49ers rebuilding across the offensive and defensive lines as we look at their roster. I think they can move up here. They're going to take a defensive tackle. I got him taking TJ Sanders. They now have taken a couple of defensive linemen to rebuild that defense. Robert Sala's coming back. He was indulged in round one. He's also indulged in round two. The 49ers are going to try to rebuild the same way they rebuilt before. Now, the Cowboys could use a running back, an edge, a corner. They took a really good pick, Tyler Booker, in the first round. I think that they probably look to add to the offensive side of the ball with this pick. I love Trey Harris, the wide receiver from Ole Miss. I think they take him to go with CeeDee Lamb, and they'll worry about the trenches a little bit more a little bit later. The Colts took the tight end, Tyler Warren, in round one. Great pick for them. They also have needs at center and guard. I'm just going to give them the highest rated inside player, Jonas Saviania, offensive guard out of Arizona. The Rams probably would have loved to have had Jalen Milrow here, just as an experiment, just to see how things go. They're not going to do that. They also need linebackers, cornerbacks, edge. They also need safeties. You know who the best player is left at safety? I do, or the defensive backs? I do. But let's say they're going to take a risk on a corner and take Siobhan Ravel. The Arizona Cardinals took Walter Nolan in the first round. They need edge. They need wide receiver. Let's just go down and give them Jalen Noel, the next best wide receiver on the board. Again, the Dolphins building in the trenches. They took Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle. I think now they look for an offensive player. They get Wyatt Milliam, the offensive guard. Same situation here with the Cincinnati Bengals. They are going to go defense again. They took the edge, Shamar Stewart, in the first round. I think now they're probably going to look for a quality defensive player on the defensive side of the ball here. Do they want an inside guy? Probably, but they also it's so tempting to take another edge. They don't really have a great pass rush. Do I reach a little bit for a defensive tackle? Do I take another edge? Who do I take? What do I do? Do I go with a defensive back? Corner is a need. I'm going to take Azra Thomas is going to be the corner. Now the Seahawks are up at 50. What are we going to do here? Well, I've managed to make a guy I coveted in the third round last until number 50. I've managed to make him last until number 50. I don't want to take a safety. I don't want to take Xavier Watts here. But when my brother, as he pointed out, hello, Jacelyn Ann. Good news regarding the VD. Yeah. Jacelyn, I'll just tell you, I'm hearing a lot of good things about today, non-football things today. So, Seahawks, what are the Seahawks going to do here at number 50? Look, I wanted to get this guy in the third round. I'm going to have to take him in the second if I'm going to take him. I am distraught. There are two players I want here. I want Mason Taylor. I want Xavier Watts. I'm going to take Xavier Watts because I think he's going to go to he wouldn't go to the Broncos, so I don't have to take him here. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU. The Seahawks need a receiver. They went offensive guard in the first round. Now they take Mason Taylor. So now we come back to the Broncos. Broncos are have a really good developing team. They took Jahade Barron in the first round. Running back is still their top need. I'm going to take Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. Is going to go to the Broncos. Now I'm back on the clock again. I'm not trading out. I'm going to take the other guy I wanted, Xavier Watts. I ended up getting both of them. If I felt like I had to take Watts because the Broncos might take him. As it turns out, the Broncos have bigger needs on the offensive side of the ball to help Bo Nix. So I lucked out there. I got two guys I wanted in the second round. I also like Princely Unamalayan, whatever his name is. He's a good player. But I think I broke Tampa Bay's heart by taking Xavier Watts there because I think they did want the safety and they do need a safety. So, cornerback, edge, safety, linebacker, they went edge or wide receiver in the first round with Emeka Ibuka. I think now they come back and go with Landon Jackson from Arkansas. I think that's a good player for them. Green Bay took a wide receiver in the first round. They also need an edge, a corner, defensive tackle. Well, sure enough, JD Tumalo from Ohio State is there. Let's pair him up. The Chargers, they went running back in the first round, and kind of an asymmetric pick for them. They still need a defensive tackle. I think they go with Darius Alexander, the defensive tackle out of Toledo there. The Buffalo Bills are on the clock. They need a defensive tackle. And, look, here's a guy I really wanted in the second round. Am I going to do that? No, I'm not going to do that. I'll wait till the third round. The Bills need linebackers, defensive tackles, edges. Carson Schweisinger is the best player on the board right now. Linebacker fills a need. I'd say go for that. The Panthers went with Tetroya McMillan, the wide receiver, in the first round. They could still use a center, an inside player. Tate Ratledge was a guard center at Georgia. I'm going to give him to the Panthers. Again, help the offensive side of the ball, help Bryce Young. Houston Texans with their second pick of the second round. They got Donovan Ezaraku, the edge from Boston College, in the first round. Now they could use a tackle, a guard. I was thinking about Ariante Ursary in their first round, a second round pick. They get him at 58 in the second round. The Ravens now, offensive guard, cornerback, edge. They went with Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. Benjamin Morrison is a good corner. He's a good fit. The Lions now went Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle, in the first round. They could go with a running back. They could go with a wide receiver. They could go with an edge. They could go with a guard. I'm looking at the guys who are available in that guard. I'm not wild about them. They need defensive players. So I'm going to get them another defensive player, Princely Humanlian edge, to pair with Aiden Hutchinson and keep that pass rush going, because it was the injury to Aiden Hutchinson that cost them a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So good for them. All right, Washington Redskins. They have needs at edge, corner, safety, linebacker, wide receiver. They took an offensive tackle instead. You cannot keep feeding this offense enough. I'm going to give them the next receiver on the board. I'm going to go with Jalen Royals because he's value in the second round. Back to the Buffalo Bills again. They just took Carson Schweitzer. They took Maxwell Harrison. They're improving their defense. They could also use a running back, Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State, a running back. Kansas City Chiefs, they took Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle, in the first round. They need some help at defensive tackle. I'm just going to give him Alfred Collins from Texas, good solid player. Once again, the Philadelphia Eagles need edge, offensive guard, cornerback, tackle, offensive tackle. I think they could use a wide receiver. So I'm going to give him Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver from Iowa State, just to keep that going. Okay, now we bounce into round 3. The Giants have got Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart. They've killed this draft so far. They also have needs at offensive tackle, offensive guard. Turns out the top player on the board is Marcus Embo from Purdue. Let's just give him that. Offensive lineman. Kansas City Chiefs picking again. They've already picked Josh Simmons and Alfred Collins, 2 players on the line. I think now they can afford to go with a exotic pick, skill position player. Where is he? I'm looking for him. Let's look at the tight ends. Harold Fannin. I'm going to give them Elijah Arroyo, the tight end from Miami. They need to get the heir apparent to Travis Kelce, or Kels, as I was told the name is yesterday. He goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, the Cleveland Browns. Interesting draft so far. Mason Graham, Shedeur Sanders, Mike Green. I think Mike Green is the best value pick. They have 2 more picks here. They're still looking for a wide receiver, an outside guy to fill a need for them. I think as we go down this list, we'll look and we'll give them Kyle Williams from Washington State, the outside player. Now the Raiders. They addressed corner, they addressed running back. They still have a need for a safety or a wide receiver, or you know what? There's always room for a pass rusher. Let's give them Olofi Ojibada, whatever his name is, the edge from UCLA. Again, back to the Patriots. The Patriots have gone offense, defense in the first 2 rounds with Nick Scorton and Will Campbell. We have 2 more picks left. I would say what you want to do here is go back to the offensive side of the ball. They've got excuse me, there's good running backs here, but as I look at these guys, I think Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end out of Bowling Green, gives them a good offensive option. Now the Jaguars, Travis Hunter, the running back, they gave up their second-round picks. They also have needs at defensive tackle, defense tight end, cornerback. They probably were disappointed. I'm just going to give them the next best defensive lineman in the list. I'm going to give him Braden Swinson, the edge from LSU. Okay, here we are back to the New Orleans Saints. They've taken an offensive tackle, a cornerback, 2 solid players. I think now is where they take a risk. They decide to go after a quarterback. Which one do they like out of the guys that are left? I think they take Tyler Shaw, quarterback out of Louisville. They like him for some reason to bring him into the mix with Spencer Rattler. And I think they figure between Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, and Tyler Shaw, one of those guys is going to step forward and be the guy for them. Okay, the Chicago Bears. Colston Loveland, the tight end, great pick. I got him taking Travion Henderson, the running back. Nick Amanawari, the safety. Again, good value picks here. They're sitting there at number 72. They could use offense. They could use defense. They haven't gotten a tackle yet. Are there any tackles available? Yeah, Ozzie Trapilo would give them a solid offensive tackle draft pick right here. Let's take him. The Jets now, Armand Menbu, they took Jalen Milroe, solved their quarterback problem. They could still use an offensive weapon. How about Jack Beck, the wide receiver from TCU? 2 offensive players so far for the Panthers. It's time to go defense. They took Tetroy McMillan and Tate Ratledge. Now I think they're going to go back and take Darian Porter, the cornerback from Iowa State. San Francisco, defense, 2 defensive line players. Do they want to go defense again? Yes, they should go defense again. That's where the talent is, but they're going to go local, get a young wide receiver to replace all the guys they traded away. I'm just going to give him Eric Ayomanor, the wide receiver from Stanford. Dallas now. Dallas is looking for a running back, an edge, a corner, a wide receiver, a defensive tackle. They got an offensive guard. They got their wide receiver. I think again they go defense on this one. And the question is, Andrew Makuba, the safety. Do they go for a corner? I'm gonna give them Makuba, the safety out of Texas, to Dallas. Now the New England Patriots, their last pick, they got Will Campbell, they got Eric Scorton, they got Harold Fannin Jr. They've done 2 things now to help the offensive side of the ball. Let's give them something to help the defensive side of the ball. Let's once again go into the mill and take Shamar Turner, the defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. Okay, Cardinals, Walter Nolan, Jalen Knoll, the wide receiver. They still have needs. They need a pass rusher. Guess what? There's a good fit here. Jordan Birch out of Oregon. Houston Texans again. The edge and the offensive tackle, they did really well on this, but they also need, they could use a wide receiver. They could use another pass rusher still, but Jared Wilson, the center out of Georgia, is a good solid fit on the inside for them. Let's just give him and let them take it. Take that and run with it. Okay, so we went offense with the Colts. It's time for defense. The question is, you're going to go with the linebacker? You're going to go with the safety? I'm going to go with Chris Paul Jr., the linebacker, only the 2nd or 3rd linebacker in the draft. The Bengals, once again, with their 3rd round pick, they have already taken Shamar Stewart, Ayezere Thomas. They still need some safety, some help, some strength upside in the inside of the offensive line. I'm going to give them Cameron Williams, the offensive tackle from Texas. Now I'm going to make an asymmetric pick. The Seahawks have taken Gray Zabel. They've taken Mason Taylor. They have taken Xavier Watts. They've not taken a quarterback. They have lucked out and gotten the draft to where they want. Now they're going to get the gravy because they got 2 picks here in the 3rd round. What are they going to do at number 82? They are going to take their quarterback. Finally, they're going to reach down the guy. This is such a tough call between Will Howard and Quinn Ewers, and Will Howard and Quinn Ewers. I love them both. Will Howard has played in big games. He's smart. He's got the physical tools. I'm taking Will Howard. The Pittsburgh Steelers were probably overjoyed. They got Will Howard and Quinn Ewers. They're going to take Quinn Ewers right after him. And all the top quarterbacks are now gone after in the 3rd round. I got to be honest. I think Howard and Ewers both go in the 2nd round somewhere. Somebody trades up for them, but I'm not mocking trades here. All right. So far, the Buccaneers have gone with Aguba Njigba, the wide receiver, and Landon Jackson, the edge. They've been also looking for help at corner and safety. I think a good fit here. Kevin Winston Jr., the safety from Penn State. And guess what? Guess what happened here, Michelle? You are going to get the guy that you want. Gunnar Helm, the tight end, out of Texas, is going to go at number 85 to your Denver Broncos. You've got now 2 weapons for Bo Nix that he could use and a corner. Now I think you probably in the later rounds, the Broncos, if they're smart, will be going with offensive linemen for a while. Okay, Chargers are up. They still need a defensive tackle, a tight end, a wide receiver. A good fit here. Terrence Ferguson, the tight end from Oregon, goes to them. Yeah, okay. They hadn't taken the tight end yet. So that's 2 offense, 1 defense. The Packers, their needs were took a wide receiver and edge. Their needs were edge, corner, defensive tackle. Omar Norman Lott, a defensive tackle. The Jaguars, their 3rd pick. They've taken a corner. They've taken an edge, 2 defensive players. Now it's probably time to do a little something to help with the offensive attack. Cam Skattebo, the running back from Arizona State, a weapon for Trevor Lawrence. Once again, the Texans have done an excellent job. They've gotten an edge. They've gotten an offensive tackle. They've gotten a center. They still need maybe a skill position player to relieve some of the pressure on CJ Stroud. They have a good running game. I don't see any wide receivers I'm really all that enamored with here. I don't see any offensive skill position guys I'm really enamored with here, except Tez Johnson from Oregon. I'm going to give him to the Houston Texans. Now, the LA Rams, they took Siobhan Ravel, the corner, in the 1st round. They're picking at 90 in the 2nd round. They need a linebacker. Barrett Carter is the top-rated linebacker, but the guy I really like, let's see how far down he is. He's too far down. All right, they're just going to take Barrett Carter because they need another linebacker, but he's too far down the list to go there. The Baltimore Ravens, they've taken the safety and the corner on the defensive side of the ball. They also need an offensive guard, a corner. I think they're just going to take the best offensive lineman on the board, Emory Jones, maybe turn him inside to a guard. Now we come down to the Seahawks' last pick. All right, so far, I've been happy with everything we've gotten. We've gotten Gray Zabel. We've gotten Mason Taylor. We've got Xavier Watts. I think it's risky whether we get Watts, but if Watts is there at 52, I'm taking him. We got Will Howard at 82. That might be a reach to get Howard or Ewers at 82. Fingers crossed that they do. And if it's not Will Howard or Quinn Ewers at 82, if they're gone, there's no point in taking a quarterback at 82. All right, because there's nobody worth taking. But at 92, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to go defense. I'm going to look up a guy that I absolutely love. Guess what? He's the next defensive tackle on the board, Ty Robinson, the defensive tackle from Nebraska. This is another guy that I think can go in the 2nd round. But so far in this draft, he lasted until the 3rd round. So this is where they have him listed. New Orleans Saints back on the clock again. They've taken a quarterback, they've taken a cornerback, they've taken an offensive tackle. They still could use some skill position guys. They could use an edge. I don't see anybody that I really see exciting to me from an edge standpoint. I'm going to just give them Joshua Farmer or Deion Walker, the tackle from Kentucky. Cleveland, once again, the Browns. They got a defensive tackle. They got a quarterback. They got an edge. They got a wide receiver. They've gone defense, offense, defense, offense, defense, offense. Who's the best player on the board? They have a lot of good players. Robinson, Ashton Gillette. They've already taken an edge. Demetrius Knight. They're going to improve their offense. Who do I have them taking? Yeah, they got to took a wide receiver in the last round. Let's go with the defensive backfield. Let's go with Lathan Ransom, the safety from Ohio State. Brian Engelman will love that pick. Kansas City Chiefs. They went offensive tackle, defensive tackle, tight end. Now I think they go with a really good quality player, Jacob Parrish, the corner from Kansas State. The Philadelphia Eagles, linebacker, wide receiver, probably come back to the defensive side of the ball. Let's get Kyle Kennard, the edge out of South Carolina. The Vikings have another pick. You took an offensive guard. I think now you go on the defensive side of the ball. You take Ashton Gillette, the edge. Once again, the Broncos, defensive tackle, offensive, or not the Broncos, the Dolphins, defensive tackle, offensive guard. They need some base building block players. They're having trouble with Tyreek Hill. Let's go with Tony Horton, the wide receiver out of Colorado State. Once again now, good solid picks all around from the Houston Texans. Now I think we're going to look at the defensive side of the ball. And we'll go with just Joshua Farmer, the defensive tackle. 49ers, defense, offense, back to defense. Or do we get the best player out there, just Demetrius Knight, linebacker out of South Carolina? A player I would have liked the Seahawks to get. Falcons have done a good job trading up, trading down. Linebacker Jalen Walker, James Pierce, they've solved their edge issue. What else do they need? They could use a safety, a linebacker, a tight end. You know what? You can also always use a guy to block for Michael Penix. So let's get Miles Frazier there. And then the Lions, the last pick, edge, offensive guard, corner, safety, wide receiver. They took a tackle. They haven't taken an offensive guard yet. Let's give them Charles Grant out of William and Mary. They can convert him inside to a guard. Kaboom. There is your second and third round mock drafts for your Seattle Seahawks oriented mock drafts. Is this the way I would like it to go? Yeah, it's the way I would like it to go. It's also the way that I really thought was round one, round two. Whoops. Listed over there on Seahawk Boy, Mike B on Twitter. And then can I add another one? Yeah, we will add another one and be done with this round three. So I could it go this way? Yeah, it could pretty much go this way. I don't see a lot of okay, so date was unreasonable with the way I picked. So let's look at what the Seahawks ended up with. If you look at their picks, they end up with Gray Zabel in the first round, solving their biggest need, a left guard. It's in there. In round two, I pick up guys I didn't really want to pick here, not in mine, but I ended up picking him. Mason Taylor, the tight end from LSU, big pass catcher that they need. Xavier Watts, the playmaking safety from Notre Dame. Not a big need, but a luxury pick when you've filled your basic needs. Round 3, I did manipulate this a little bit to give them Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, quarterback of the future, excellent guy. Um, I will be surprised if he makes it into round 3. Ty Robinson could go in the second round. He's generally rated a third or fourth round pick, but he's a monster. So if that's the way it came out, if that's the way it ended up, great. If we came away today with Gray Zabel, Mason Taylor, Xavier Watts, Will Howard, and Ty Robinson, or Quinn Ewers and Ty Robinson, I would be over the moon ecstatic. I would be like, this is the best off season the Seattle Seahawks have ever had. That's how I would feel about it. Hi, Libby on the label. How are you doing? So that's it. That's the exercise. It was fun. It'll be hilarious if I get it a lot of it right. I'm never going to get all of it right, but that's it. That's what I'm doing, and I'm just going to kick back, relax, enjoy the day, and the draft comes on, I believe, at 4 Pacific time. Round 2 and 3 tonight, and Seahawks have 4 picks. That's exciting. Any way you slice it, that is absolutely exciting stuff. So thanks for being here. I'll catch you on the other side. We'll be doing a post-draft Strictly Football episode this week, probably on Tuesday. Either way, if not, thanks for coming. Thanks for watching, and go Hawks.